I have to thank the Noble Earl for putting forward something that I was thinking about. Indeed, I talked to the Table Office because much of the discussion around this bill has focused on the fact that it provides powers but not duties. And I did suggest to the Table Office that perhaps we could go through the whole bill and change every may to must. And they persuaded me that that was possibly not the best way forward. And I thank them for their patience and all of their expert assistance. But I think the Noble Earl has managed to focus on what is the key part of this bill and where the may should be changed to must. And I know that the Noble Earl put this down as a probing amendment, but I think we should be thinking about this as a serious way forward, a duty to look after the key principles of carbon storage, of ecosystems, of the state of our natural world, of healthy food. These should be a duty of the Minister. Now, I'm going to move on to just very briefly mention amendments 8, 22, 25, 31 and 50, all of which were moved by my noble friend, Baroness Jones of Moulsecoomb. They're all about air pollution. And when you look at this bill, there's a huge gaping hole. It looks at water, it looks at soil, it looks at our ecosystems on the ground. It doesn't talk about the air, but that's all part of an interrelated system. And we know that air pollution and farming issues are very closely interrelated. I've also put my name in this bill to the amendment moved by the Noble Lord, Lord Teverson, Amendment 57, which says that financial assistance in Tier 2 and 3 can only be given if individual schemes are in line with the local nature recovery strategy. And I think this addresses a very crucial and important point, that we need joined up thinking, systems thinking about the nature of our countryside. And we have at the moment a number of silos. We have the Environment Bill, we have the Agriculture Bill, we have the now delayed food strategy. And we need to make sure these are all joined up and working together, not at cross purposes for each other. We need a whole landscape approach, something the wildlife trusts have been doing a lot of excellent work on already. Although I think we have to notice that what we see in the Environment Bill is going to lay new duties on councils, which we were discussing earlier today in oral questions, already have enormous burdens on them. But finally, I come to Amendment 234, headed Agricultural Extension, which appears under my name on the order paper. And I think this has notable similarities with an amendment in another group, Amendment 122 from the Noble Lord, Lord Grantchester. Both of us are getting at the point that farmers need reliable, independent, secure, certain expert advice. And in preparing for today, I was looking back to the debate in your Lordship's House back in 1996 and 1997, when what was the Agricultural Development and Advisory Service was privatised. And there's some very telling words in that debate from the late Noble Lord, Lord Mackie of Benchy, who talked about how since what was then the Agriculture Development and Advisory Service had started charging for its services, less use was being made of them. Some people couldn't afford them, and perhaps the people who most needed them couldn't afford them. The state of our countryside, the state of our agricultural land, is a matter of national interest. It's something that we cannot leave to market forces. We've seen, in terms of agricultural extension, agricultural advice, a huge reduction, a huge privatisation, a move towards many farmers being forced to take advice from the suppliers of agricultural chemicals, of agricultural seeds, even from their buyers, the supermarkets. What farmers need is independent expert advice, and we need people to be able to develop careers in providing that advice. If we have in the Southwest, an expert on growing potatoes who spends decades just focusing on that, that's very hard to do in the private sector. If potatoes have a few bad years, no one can afford to pay that person. That person doesn't have the chance to develop their skills in the way they would in an advisory service. So, my lords, I think we have to look at the whole complete system here, and part of a proper agricultural system has to be a government-run advice service. And that's something that's existed historically for a very long time. It can actually be traced back to 3 millennia ago in ancient China, when we know there was a government minister advising farmers on the way forward to improve agricultural systems. This is a matter of national interest. It needs national involvement, a proper advice service.